Hey, what's up? David Cohen here for Learn Now FX, and welcome back to another exciting Fusion tutorial. So today we're going to be making this cool Lightning and Cyberpunk title inside of Davinci Resolve. So let's take a look. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project settings and I'm going to change it from 4K to 1280 by 720, and I know this is very low resolution, but I just wanted to have smooth playback for the whole tutorial. You can go ahead and make it in 4K if you want, and of course frame rate 24. And video format, I'm just gonna set it to HD 720 24 frames a second, 8-bit, and I'm going to click save. Now I'm gonna right click on the media pool, create a new fusion composition. 5 seconds should be fine. I'm gonna create and go to the beginning of the timeline and drag the composition onto the timeline. Here is our composition, and I'm gonna head on over to the fusion tab. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to take this media out node. Now that we're in our fusion tab, I'm going to drag it to the corner where it isn't going to get into the way. And I'm going to grab a text plus node. And I'm just going to type something like all caps Cyberpunk. Alright. I'll turn off caps lock. And I'm going to get the font Cyberpunk. You can get this in the link in the description below. It's a free font. It's not from the font, it's from another font website. So I'm just going to scale this a little up, give it a little bit more detail. And to this I'm going to search for a filter node, control spacebar, search for filter, and instead of relief I'm going to set this to Sobel, something like this, and I'm going to search for an erode and dilate. Okay, that's it. And I'm just going to erode this a little bit. It'll take a while for it to load so you can actually see what is, yeah, by the time you realize it's already too late. So I'm just going to erode this a bit more. There, that's good. Alternatively, instead of the filter set to Sobel, I bet if you set it to Laplacian, it would be a little bit thinner. That's actually pretty good. So I'm just gonna bring the erode a little bit back. We want it to be like really thin. Yeah, there it is. So to this, I'm going to add my favorite fuse, X Glow. This is a great glow fuse by Brian Ray. It's free. You can get this on Reactor. And I bet we eroded this a little bit too much. So I'm just going to get rid of this. I see it doesn't work very well with Laplacian. So I'm going to change it back to Sobel and let's erode it back to where it was. Yeah, it doesn't work that well with, that's why I didn't use it in the beginning. So just going to erode it a bit more until it gets thin. And let's look at it in the X Glow. Looks pretty nice. And I'm going to set it to like a blue or purple. I think blue is good for this one. Something like this. I can turn off the checkered underlay. That looks good. Alright, so here is our glow outline, but that's not nearly done. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start making a 3D text. So I'm going to search for text 3D, and here I'm going to type the same thing, all caps, and I'm going to search this to the viewer, turn off caps lock, find the same font. Alright, now thank you BMD Blackmagic Design for adding this nifty little lighting button. Really appreciate it because it wasn't there before. Makes the workflow a lot easier. You just click on it and you can click on lighting. I hope that you get a few more buttons, bring them back, like from the Fusion 9 interface, like the transparency button was very nifty here. And could you guys please bring that back as well? So in this text 3D, we're going to look at it at an angle like this. And we're going to go to the extrusion tab. And we're going to bring the depth forward like this. That's good, maybe a little bit more. Bring up subdivisions, I guess. And we're just going to bring up the bevel depth and bevel width. You have to bring them up together because otherwise if you bring one all the way to the top and then you start bringing up the other, it'll look very bad. So I just want to Just want to make a little bit of this. So Control S to save your project. You wouldn't want to lose your work. All right, this is actually too much. Yeah, too much. So I'm just gonna bring the depth down. All right, so this is pretty good. So to this, we need to add a shader. So we're also going to use another free plugin. This is a script. It works in, it's actually a script, but it looks really good. It's like, I think it looks, the user interface very similar to a plugin. So I'm going to search for kick-ass shaders, and I'm going to go, this is also a free script available on Reactor. It has some great 3D shaders. It's a library of 3D shaders, and it works very well. So once you download from Reactor, you want to go to Workspace, go all the way down to Scripts, and here you have kick-ass shaders, and I'm going to click on Content Browser. So from this, we have a menu of these different great shaders. So I'm going to go natural, you have these, utility. What we're looking for now is the HDRI maps. And the good thing about these shaders, you can say that there are like 24 shaders in here. It's very, very high quality shaders. And the best part about them is you can use Fusion's 2D toolset to change them in very different ways and make them very cool, make them very different. You can customize them in the way you want. And this is definitely my top 10 list of things on Reactor, my top 10 favorites. So I'm just going to click on the Parkland, and I can close this because we don't need this anymore. So if we look at this in the viewer, we'll have the shader viewer. We have viewer that's designed, see the material viewer. So you can click on Alt to rotate around this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Parkland, drag it to the side. I'm going to search for blur. And let's look at this in the second viewer. All right, so we're going to give this a bit of blur. Yeah, so let's keep it in both viewers. And then I'm going to get rid of it from one viewer because, we can make it a single viewer. Bring up the blur a bit more, like that, but not too much. All right, next thing I'm going to add is a brightness contrast node. What I want to do, I want to bring the saturation to 0, and I want to bring the contrast up, not that much. All right, to this I'm going to add a color curves, CCV, control spacebar, search for CCV, or you can grab it from the toolbar here. And I'm going to uncheck blue, alpha, green, and take this red, I'm going to drag it up, Shift S, take the blue, drag it down, click Shift S, that makes the spline smooth. Deselect all of this, green, bring the green slightly up like that, Shift S. Now, if we look at our Chrome Reflect again, we can see that it's now a gold shader. And I know what you're thinking, that if you go here back to the Kika Shaders content browser, there was a gold shader on the first page, right? So this one isn't really as reflective as I'd want it to be. I mean, sure, you could go through like a setup to change all of the details, but I think this is just the fastest way to do it with a simple HDRI map. And you can go through all the shaders here if you want to make it a different shader, but I think this one works the easiest, and for the tutorial, I liked it. So we can bring up the blur just a bit. You just make sure it doesn't lose its contrast, so that's pretty good. Click on Control S to save. Now this is a really great fuse. Thank you, Andrew Hazelden and Aurora de Blue for designing this. This is just simply amazing. Very great script. So I'm going to Control Spacebar, search for replace material, because the 3D text, unlike the 3D shapes, they doesn't have a texture input. It just has this. This. I'm not really sure what that's for. So the replace material starts to go crazy when it doesn't have a material to replace with. So, all right, yeah. So that's what happened. So here is our golden text. Looks pretty nice, eh? So I think we can bring the blur slightly down. Control S, looks very good. And let's just remove this from the viewer, bring the blur down again, because if you modify a node all the way at the beginning of a tree and look at the one that's already at the end, it can cause Fusion to slow down like really bad. So if you want the shinier you want it to be, you just bring the blur down. So this is a pretty nice gold shader. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to render this. And that's going to be this text. Yeah, as you can see, it doesn't fit. But I don't want to create a whole camera now. This is just too much work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this to double view. I have this here, and I have this here. Turn on light so it'll look more comfortable. All right. So I'm going to select this text, and I'm going to move it like that. Something like this. All right, looks pretty good. And without the lights, it looks pretty good as well. Normally, I'd have to go and set up the lights to get this kind of look, but this looks pretty well. But this looks pretty good. I mean, you could set up lights to get this to look even better, but I think this is pretty good for what we're going for. And I think we blurred it just a bit too much. I'll set this to something like 2.5. Not really sure what this is. I don't think this is the number of pixels though. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. This is our golden text, and let's remove this from the viewer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to merge this outline over the text, the golden text. As we can see, it needs a little bit of adjustment. So I'm going to go to this merge node. And I'm going to bring it like this. And I'm not sure if the size fits either. So the size is right about there. I'm just going to hold down Control, and if you're on Mac, you'd hold down Command and bring the slider down, and that gives you these small little increments that you can work with. So this looks pretty good, as the places where it's cracked is glowing from there. So I'm just gonna Control S. Looks pretty nice. Now, one next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to first I want to clean this up. So I'm gonna right click and I'm going to select Options Orthogonal Pipes, and make sure that you select Arrange Tools. Make sure that it's to grid is checked. Mine is checked by default. But make sure you click on that. That'll keep your nodes very clean and organized. And I'm just going to keep everything in a way that we can see what's going on here. Yeah, so this is my way of keeping the nodes organized, and a lot of people will argue with that. They like direct pipes and pipe routers and stuff like that. I'm just going to click Control S. So that's pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to get is I'm going to get a background, set it to alpha, bring the alpha down, make it completely transparent, and I'm going to search for Blitz. POC Blitz. This is how we're going to make the lightning. This is an amazing fuse by my friend Vito Lamana. Now this is a really great fuse, and it gives some great results. But you can play with this a little bit. You can have this is actually a strike. This looks very good, like right off the bat. This is like if you'd want to make a lightning strike, like different kinds. And what we're trying to do, we're going to go here to the branch length, and I'm going to click on link all, and we have the dynamic here. So I'm just gonna slowly move this here, and without playing, this thing is gonna, even if you don't click play, this thing is gonna move by itself. I'm telling you that. So point density, we can bring this up a little bit. All right, and splitting randomness, amplitude we can bring up. There are a lot of things, and smoothness I always like to bring up to 1. You can manually type in a higher value if you want like really smooth lightning. So I think we can bring amplitude back down. There are a lot of things to play with here. It's a very great fuse. Thank you, Vito. And this is the light version. You can get this on Reactor for free. And there's also a pro version available for Pirates of Confusion. This is Patriots of Vito. So Patreons, and you can, yeah, Patreons, not Patriots. Yeah, and you can get this on his um, on his Patreon page, or you can get this version for free. I'm not sure if the pro version is out yet, but I know that this fuse is just amazing. So you can play with this a bit more. Um, yeah, that's the best result we've gotten so far. So I'm just going to look at this in the second viewer, and I'm going to select this and select the lightning while looking at the text. So I'm going to take this point, zoom in. I want it to be here at the corner. And the second point, These are start and end points. So the lighting will change in the middle, but no matter what, they're going to start and end here. So I'm just gonna save this. Now, here's the trick. You can just copy and paste and merge and take another copy. You can just paste. You already copied it. Merge. Yeah. You can do this like 3 or 4 times, but I think 3 should be fine. If you look at this in the viewer, they're all different because this fuse has like a random seed in it, and it's very interesting how it works. So it's very like it works like lightning, very like sort of, I don't want to say unstable. It's a very stable fuse, very cool. But that's how it works. You can make as many copies as you want, merge them together, and the result will look great. And now I'm just going to merge this here. And as we can see, this is now behind the text, which is actually a pretty cool look. I never even paid attention, but I want it to be in front of the text. Yeah, so it's a very different look behind and in front of. I think behind is actually pretty cool too. So let's try hitting Control T on the merge, Control T. For it would be Command T. That would switch the foreground and background input from the merge node. All right. So now we're going to bring in some of our project files. This looks actually very good. We have our glow. We have our. So this is actually looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna bring in our project files. So the first one, for now. Now here is our little light glare. This was made in Fusion. This was made in Fusion, and in another tutorial, I believe it was the action title, I showed you how to make this using image plane and what else was there? An image plane, a point light, a renderer, and it was a very simple setup to make this kind of light glare. Very simple. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to apply a mask because the light goes out from the edges. And I'm just going to view this. I don't want to view anything else because this use takes a lot of attention. All right, so I'm just going to view this. This one has a checkered underlay. So I'm just gonna give it some soft edge. And you're about to see what I'm gonna do. Now to this, I'm going to search for our plugin, TNT. You can get this for free at the link in the description. This is a intense colorization plugin. And I'm just going to right click to select checkered underlay. And we have this black around it. So I'm just gonna click on multiply. That gets rid of black backgrounds. Leaves you with this color, with the alpha, transparent. And I'm going to bring the color closer to blue. And I'm going to go to the pre-colorization, bring down the saturation, because you have to desaturate an image before you apply a different color to it. And once again, huge shout out to my friends Brian Ray and Sam Treadway for helping me. This was a joint effort and they helped a lot. Brian taught me everything I know about fuses, and Sam, he did a lot of work. He brought this pre-colorization, he added this vibrance, he added a lot of things here. He made it really cool. And we can turn up the vibrance actually, but that's a little bit too much, so we can leave it like this. Change the mode to basic, and that'll give you a little bit more control. That's pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to merge this over, and I'm going to select this merge, and I'm going to move it right here, and probably want to scale this down because it's too big. And I'll make sure that's right over the point where the lightnings meet, like right there. And I'll grab this, pipe it over the output of the merge, and I'm going to drag this center to the edge where this was, right there. And I'm going to bring the size down. Oh, sorry, glitching a little bit. All right, so this looks pretty cool. Control S. So next thing I'm going to do is the reflection. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it higher. I'm going to bring it all the way towards the top. And just make sure that the scale is perfect before you add these little glints, because then it would be hard to do this. Make sure that it's scaled perfectly before you do anything like that. So now I'm going to take another transform, and I'm going to set this to flip horizontal, flip vertically. All right, and let's merge the two together. And you control the position of the reflection with the merge, not with anything else. Now I'm gonna select Control S. All right, now I'm going to drag our second texture here. Now Control S again, don't want to lose anything. So to this copy, I'm just going to drag it to the side. And this is how we're going to make our reflections. I believe that someone asked me a while back how to make reflections on the floor. And I gotta tell you, it's a lot easier to do in 2D than in 3D, because in 3D you have to get like lots of cameras, and you have a setup here in the effects library in templates of reflections, and it's not something simple to do. It'll take a while tutorial, but I think it'll be easier. Hopefully it'll be easier to do in Fusion 17 if we get some ray tracing renders and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll get this. So we'll search for blur. Now in the blur, what we're going to do, we're going to unlock the X and Y, bring the X to 0, and bring the Y like that. Alright, I think you see where I'm going with this. Now if we look at the merge, it's already starting to look like a reflection, especially if we turn off checkered underlay. But we're not done yet. There's still one thing we haven't finished. One thing we're going to do is we're going to take this texture, and the texture doesn't fit. It's not perfect. You have this black. I don't even know why they did that, but it's actually alpha, I think. Let me see. Yeah, it's al. I'm not sure why they did that. So I'm just going to search for letterbox. All right, so here's our letterbox. That fits. And I'm going to get a transform node. Scale this up till it actually fits. Let's look at it. All right, that fits. Now I'm going to probably add another transform. And scale it down, and I'll set the edges to mirror. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, much better. All right, bring it a little bit smaller. We need the texture to be mapped a little bit better. Control S. Now what we're going to do is we're going to search for DVE. This is basically 2.5D in Fusion. This is your way to move things in 3D without actually going to the 3D space. So I'm just going to change the X rotation till we get something. Yeah, sorry, so the program went a little bit slow, so I had to restart it. So if we look at this transform in the viewer, I think we shouldn't tile it so much, because that's what caused it to slow down. So I'm just going to search for DVE, and I'm not even going to look at it. I'm just going to get it to somewhere about 112, and then I'm going to look at it, because this node is a little bit unstable as a version 16.2, I think. So I'm just going to drag this down. All right, perfect. Now Control S, and after this blur, this is our reflections blur, I'm going to search for a vary blur, and I'm going to drive this input of the vary blur with this texture. So let's look at the viewer. The vary blur is a pretty slow node. It takes a while to load, and this is the whole node tree that we made before, so it'll take a while. Alright, so here's our reflection. It adds a little bit of detail, so I'm just gonna bring the quality up. It's probably 8. Bring the blur size up like that. Bring the blur limit up as well. There is a different way of doing this. I'll show you that right now. If we take this and search for bitmap, and automatically Fusion put it in the wrong input, so I'm just gonna search, plug it into here. Let's look at our bitmap, and it automatically defaults to alpha. That's not what we want. We want it to default, we want it to be Luma. This is our Luma map. We want to make a Luma mask. So if we take this bitmap and pipe it into the mask input of the blur, and we look at this now, we get very interesting little result. We get a little texture. But what we want to do, we want to go to the bitmap, we want to invert it. So we get something like this. So I'm going to take a copy of this, because this is just a faster way of doing it. I'm going to copy it, paste an instance here, and this one without the mask, and this one with the mask. So that just gives a little bit more detail. I'm going to Control S. Now let's look at our final product, shall we? All right. Now we can create a background, or you can leave it like this because this looks pretty cool. So I'm just going to turn off the checkered underlay. And here is our title. We can scale this, but I think this looks pretty cool. You can use a cinematic aspect ratio if you want. And one more thing I would usually do, I would take a background, leave it at black, take another background, merge it. This one I'll make blue, add a ellipse mask, make it an oval. Don't even need to view it at the moment. And go to the soft edge, set this to 0.3. You can bring it even higher if you want. Let's look at that. Yeah, so we need to Control T because this one is the foreground. So that looks pretty good. I can take this ellipse and move it a little bit. Like that. You can bring the soft edge even higher. You can make this longer. Alright. Now, we just need to merge our lightning on top of this. Our title. And there we are. Here's our title. And just want to pipe this into the media out, and you can go ahead and render. Just go to the delivery tab, you render, and everything will be great. Hope you guys like it. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe.